Hi, everybody, and welcome to the fourth episode of the Self Care Month for the month of October. And in this Webinars That Inspire installment, we are going to be talking about the addiction of eating. It is where we use food as a substitute instead of food as nourishment, and how most of us actually unconsciously do this in our daily life. So, I am Aditi, your transformational mentor, therapist, artist, and entrepreneur. Today's topic is something that almost everybody loves to do, but yet no one knows the science and the psychology behind it. I've had the privilege to study this as a subject for about almost a year, a few years ago, when I was doing my mind, body, and eating coaching certification from the Institute of Eating Psychology in the US. And thereafter, I have been supporting a lot of people in their health journey, helping them treat various physical issues, aversions, allergies, mood issues, especially for a lot of women, mood swings, fatigue, exhaustion, and a lot of other issues with food. And how do you eat well that supports a great healthy body and a great healthy mind? So, the last two webinars of this month are going to be completely focused on self care around today, which is food and emotions. And the next week is going to be food and body. So, today it's more about how we misuse food as a way to abuse our bodies. And the next week is going to be with a special guest who's going to talk to you really about what foods do we eat, what do we not eat, what supports our bodies, doesn't support our bodies, and what your bodies are actually meant to do in terms of health and movement and peak fitness. And this person is a health coach and a fitness coach. And I'm personally quite excited because I've seen some amazing results in his coaching with me and his coaching with other people. So let's start our journey today. Our journey with food and eating and nurturance, all of it actually begins with our mother. We've never really given too much credence or attention to the lower part of our faces, the mouth, the jaw, the nose, the insides of your mouth, unless, of course, there's something wrong there and you've had to get treatment, or perhaps you're a dentist, and it's only then that the attention really goes to these places. These parts of our faces are very closely connected with our primary survival. I know we don't think of this on a daily basis, but this is very, very important for you to know. The mouth is one of the most important sensory organs that we have. It can be used both for aggression, like you can bite somebody and cause serious damage, or it can be used for pleasure, such as kissing and eating. And of course, the most important part of digestion begins in the mouth. The food breakdown happens in the mouth with the saliva, and then so on. Then digestion continues from there on. The jaw is also extremely critical when it comes to chewing and to enable that digestion. And the mouth as a whole is very, very critical for survival. So when we are babies, we actually explore the world with our mouths. Our hands and our feet don't really pick up so much sensory load as our mouths do, which is why babies put everything in their mouth, because they're using the mouth to explore things. The eyes are not fully developed yet. So it's the mouth that actually does all the work for them. The mouth has a crazy number of nerve endings, and hence it is also a place from where you receive immense amounts of pleasure. So when a baby feeds on its mother, it is actually being both physiologically fed and emotionally fed. Milk also contains something called tryptophan. Any food that actually contains tryptophan, if you do have it, it creates a very relaxing response in the body, which is why a lot of people drink milk when there is severe acidity or burning sensation in the stomach, because it does actually create a calming effect. So, being fed directly is connected to feeling relaxed. And when you hold a baby at the same time and feed it at the same time, that is when our minds first associate being fed with getting love. So there's a comfort in both. So we learn to love, we learn to eat, we learn eating and emotions, eating and feeling, all at the same time from our primary caregiver. So whether it's your mother or your aunt or your grandmother, whoever is the female primary caregiver that raised you is the one that set up the stage in that sense for you to learn about food and eating. So what happens is when we grow older, as in we're not babies anymore, we are toddlers or older children, we are weaned off and we start to eat on our own. Or when you get a lot older, you start to cook on your own. These childhood associations that our own nervous system has created from the time that we were babies keeps carrying on to you as you are an adult. That association never really stops. So you actually eat very, very unconsciously right now. So if you are having disorders with eating or issues with eating, we actually take a deep dive into what actually happened when you were breastfed. So I know there are people who have never been breastfed. So for them, it's not unusual to have eating disorders, or their mother was not emotionally available. The child wasn't held much when they were fed. So it can actually give rise to a lot of emotional imbalances and unresolved issues that show up when you're actually eating. So nobody actually creates this association, but there is this institute in the US who's done the work, and they've been doing this for, I think, the last 15, 20 years. So this is the psychology of eating is actually a very new, cutting edge kind of a psychology that dives into understanding your mental and emotional state through your eating habits, through your food, through your body associations. Um, the reason being that we feel that our mind experiences emotions. The truth is that your body actually experiences emotions. So when you're very fearful or excited, the body, you feel it in your body. When you're really angry, your fists clench up, your face goes red, your throat may either clam up or you might want to scream. So emotions are very, very physical, and so is eating. And what happens is, if this is dysfunctional from the beginning, we can associate emotions with eating, and it just becomes a mess. So, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So, for example, if you were taught things like, okay, you have to finish everything on your plate because there are hungry children, in India or Africa or wherever it is, or that it's a sin to leave food on your plate and God will not forgive you, then you were not raised on a diet of nutrition, but you were raised on a diet of. I'm sorry, that's my cat. Apparently, he wanted to play right now. Okay. Where was I? Okay. So, if, for example, you were forced to eat foods which you didn't like, your body found repulsive, that you felt like throwing up every time you ate it. Like, for example, with me as a child, I couldn't eat anything slimy. It was very difficult for me to eat slimy food. So, oats and things like that were very tough. I would immediately get like a reflux to throw up. I stopped eating. I mean, obviously, but there are a lot of children who are forced to eat foods saying that it's healthy for you, eat it, just overcome what you're feeling, it doesn't matter. So what happens to the child is, at that moment, you start to feel shame for not liking it when you're supposed to like it. And at the same time, you get really angry with your family or your parents at that moment because you're not able to express what you're actually feeling. You just know that you don't want it. So in that moment, what you're doing is that you're being raised on a diet of shame and anger when it comes to eating foods. So another way is that if you get hurt physically or emotionally, a lot of mothers, especially in India, we have this in older cultures, that the mother will, oh, you got hurt, or someone hurt you or whatever. Come, I'll make this sweet for you. You'll feel better. Okay, it's done from a space of love, but it's done from a unconscious space, and this starts to then become where you reach out for food as a coping mechanism. You reach for food as a healing mechanism. You can't stop yourself from eating sweets when you are hurt as an adult. And that's exactly how it works. Um, so when you were very small, you have to try, either you can ask your mother if she's around, or ask another family member if they do remember, what was your relationship with breast milk at that point. What was your relationship with food immediately after you were weaned off? Were you a big eater? Were you a miserly eater? What kind of an eater were you? So what kind of eater you are actually determines a lot about what your emotional and mental health is. So here's the thing: we were raised on a specific diet of emotions, and that diet of emotions actually is today what creates a certain level of what I call false hunger and not real physical hunger. But there is hope there. Okay. Because eating and food are so deeply associated with love and getting love and giving love and all of that, people eat actually for all sorts of reasons other than physical hunger. And this is what I call false hunger. So, food being the closest substitute for love, because the two have been so clubbed together since you were born, food is a form of celebration. You get married, you have food. Someone gets a promotion. Hey, party! Let's order food. So everything is about all kinds of celebration. Is almost always centered around food, and that's how human cultures have developed for centuries, ever since the caveman time. Food is also a reward. Oh, if you do well in your exams, I will order this cake for you. So it's a reward. Food is also healing or recovery. You're given specific, what I call soul foods or heartwarming foods or health foods when you're unwell. So food is also used as a recovery or a healing process. Food is social connection. You meet your friends over lunch. Okay, that food becomes a central part of it. Food is also an act of love. Cooking for somebody is when you show them that you care. Food is refuge, meaning it's a place that you go to when you're feeling lonely. There are a lot of people who eat and stuff themselves because of loneliness, and so much more. It's a long, long list which I possibly can't get into right now, but because I want to talk to you about a few more things. So, although food does bring you a lot of comfort, it brings you nourishment, it brings you a satiety value. A satiety is a feeling of fullness in your body. It cannot and is not a substitute for love. You have to learn to disassociate the two, disassociate love and emotions from eating. And that is when you'll be able to overcome any eating issues. So, although our basic and immediate self care really revolves around getting air and water and food for our bodies, we don't have a dysfunctional and tumultuous relationship with air and water. Because air is so freely available, it's not a problem. Water is also considerably freely available so far. But food is the only one where we have a seriously complicated relationship. And the reason for that is very, very simple: that from the moment we were born, we were dependent on somebody else for food. So that's how it is. And our responsibility is to basically take care of our bodies. And so why is this coming under self-care? The simple reason is that we are responsible for our own survival. Okay, if you can't provide yourself food and air and water, you don't exist. It's really as simple as that. So, food, unknown to a lot of people, actually comes in one of the top 10 addictions in the world. Not food, as in eating, comes under the top 10 addictions in the world. It is almost always, psychological than physiological, meaning more than just the need of the body, it is the need of the emotions. It is not driven by a physical hunger, it is driven by an emotional hunger or a false hunger. So it results in things like binge eating, chronic dieting, and boredom eating, emotional eating, all of that. And all of these are a result of dysfunctional eating patterns that you have incorporated ever since you were a kid. Okay. The only reason why we eat then, when it comes to emotional reasons, is we eat to replace the love that we didn't get, or we eat to avoid experiencing certain emotions. So eating is done more as a function of not getting enough love, or to it is a way to kind of bypass processing emotions, because we've never ever been taught how to feel through your emotions fully, how to not get afraid of emotions, how there is no need to suppress your emotions. So when you find that you don't have an appropriate how do I say, appropriate model as an adult, in your family when you were growing up who taught you how to feel your emotions, how to express your emotions, how you don't need to be afraid of your emotions and just kind of, experience them and they will leave on their own. That there is no trust that is built in the self that you can actually handle this. So when you don't trust yourself to handle your emotions, you will reach out to eat and eat foods and eat things that make you almost feel comatose, meaning that you like to numb yourself out. You eat till you get numb because then you don't have to experience the emotions. Like I said earlier, it is your body that experiences emotions. So it is a way to eating as a way to numb yourself out. And I don't just mean, that you eat like a heap full of, a plate full of food and you just stuff yourself. That's not it. Sometimes it can also be, just needing a snack all the time, every day, when you're not actually physically hungry. So we learn how to deal with that in very small, simple ways. But honestly, it really depends from person to person because everybody has a different emotional history. Everybody has a different eating history. So that's how it is. So, what happens is when we don't feel up to the task of processing our emotions, when we feel we are not fit enough or right enough for it, uh, we start to use food as a way to push it down and numb ourselves out, like I said earlier. So, it's equivalent to say, brushing things under the carpet. And you keep brushing things under the carpet till the carpet starts growing like a big bulge. And that's kind of what we do with our bodies, isn't it? We stuff it, we stuff it, we stuff it till we cut off our awareness with our bodies, and our bodies start gaining weight or it starts increasing fat deposits in strange places where you don't want it to. And it almost always is a result of emotional eating. So when we don't practice self care and we are not being mindful of how we are eating and what we are eating and how frequently we are eating, the state of mind that we are also eating it in, it results in 1,000 different illnesses. You can have allergies, you can have syndromes, and then bodies just grow to disproportionate and unmanageable sizes over a period of time, and then starts the cycle of chronic dieting. Okay, so there are two cultures in the world where two or three cultures actually in the world where this is not encouraged. So I'll explain to you what it is. So the French, the Japanese, and a lot of the Chinese, unless the Chinese are children who have been brought up on a Western diet, which is very different from what the original Chinese diet is. So all of these people, their culture is to eat with pleasure or to eat mindfully. So the French people eat for pleasure. It's kind of there in their DNA, which is why French people don't tend to get fat. You will very, very rarely see French people being fat. They seem to have more natural bodies, and for them, eating is pleasurable. Eating is also a very social event, but it's not done in unawareness. And trust me, they eat all kinds of stuff which is made out of refined wheat flour and stuff which under normal circumstances, if our bodies ate it, we'd probably put on a heck of a lot of weight. But they eat it, they digest it. The reason being that their very principle of eating is based on pleasure and it is not based on stuffing yourself with unawareness. So, with the Japanese and the Chinese, there is a lot more mindful eating practices, at least in the ancient culture, which is also why a lot of the people do not put on weight. They have very, very few illnesses compared to a lot of people in India. India is one of the leaders in heart diseases and diabetes, and both of these are lifestyle illnesses, which means what? That we are experts in not processing our emotions. We have been taught to, men have to be men and they have to face up to it. Women have to be quiet and just do what they need to be done, what needs to be done. Nobody is taught how to be vulnerable. Nobody is taught how to process their emotions, which results in all kinds of eating. And at the same time, we have these Western cuisines, Western foods that have come in, particularly the fast foods, which are seen then as a replacement for the nourishing foods that we actually have in India. India has some of the most medicinal, balanced, and most amazing forms of eating. but we've just cut ourselves off from that. In fact, in the West, they really love what we do over here, but we don't. Somehow we don't like what we do over here. There are very few people that actually value what Ayurveda, for example, teaches you about food, etc. The only way to get more self-care as far as eating and food is concerned is to teach yourself things about food and nutrition that you perhaps were never taught. I feel that food and nutrition should be part of school curriculum along with teaching them about money and banking. There is no pragmatic system that we have in place in our education. So if you had that kind of education where you weren't exposed to this, please do so now. Please do it. Go read books. If you want references of books, please ask me. I'm very, very happy to share with you the amazing references of books and different experts that are there out there in the world who are teaching a lot more about this. That is, if you are interested. So here's a question. Have you ever seen anyone eating for pleasure? It's so amazing. I actually know somebody who does eat for pleasure. In fact, he will be the one who will be conducting the webinar next week. He's somebody who eats for pleasure. Very rarely is he distracted by anything. So when you actually sit with a person who eats for pleasure, they are so very focused on their plate, literally. Everything about them revolves around the pleasure sensation, the sensory overload, the taste, the smells, the textures, the chewing, the eating, the relishing, the saliva, circulating the food in the mouth. Only those things in that moment matter. And I have even known people who have actually lost a lot of weight simply by eating mindfully and allowing their body to derive the pleasure that comes from eating from this really sensory organ in your body called your mouth. So try and find somebody who actually eats for pleasure, because you can, when you eat with them, you'll learn how to do it. And they probably do it very, very naturally. So sit with them and learn. It's a lot of fun. Okay, so we'll move on to the next one. Food is, of course, like I said, one of the biggest addictions in the world. And uh, probably the biggest addiction in the world is the addiction of love. But very, very closely along the heels of the addiction of love comes food. Things like smoking, alcohol, drugs, etc., trust me, come way, way further down the list. If people have not received love from a parent, particularly the mother, and continue to feel that lack of love as an adult, and they're not able to process their emotions, the ones who find it very, very difficult to be present, those that live in their head, those who are constantly distracted and looking for the next best thing, the ones that get bored very quickly, the ones that need constant stimulation, the ones that are cut off from their bodies and do not practice regular self-care are very, very suitable candidates for emotional hunger and can tend to use eating and food as a drug for fulfillment. So, resulting issues are obviously obesity, allergies, aversions, hormonal imbalances, high fat percentage related health issues, and stress and lifestyle related issues. These are also people who are very rarely happy with their body. They tend to have disproportionate body image issues. There is no gratitude for the body. There is tremendous amounts of self judgment and self obsession about the body, but not in a very good way. If you were obsessed with your body from a point of view of self care and not undoing self abuse, then that's different. They're focused on a false hunger that is fed with food to keep it quiet because you don't want to experience the emotions that you're having inside. That is using food as a drug, and that is addiction. Then obviously comes the cycle of chronic dieting in order to fix the body that you yourself have created. But here's the thing, the body isn't actually what the problem is. The body is a symptom of something much, much, much bigger. And the route to understand what it is the eating pattern and the food that you're having. So a lot of unresolved issues with eating come from how we perceive the world, how we digest our life, what eating patterns and habits did we learn from our families, what is our definition of love, what is the definition of love that we've inherited from our families and our parents, and is that kind of definition of love really working for you? How are we processing or not processing our emotions? Are we living life or are we avoiding life? Are we escapists? Do we get bored very quickly? Are we addicted to being stimulated constantly, which is not unusual given that many people are addicted to scrolling on their phone, and they do it very mindlessly. So they just show me the next best thing, and it actually puts you into like a a kind of a suspended stupor of being just escaping somewhere in that moment. You're not present, so even if somebody's calling you, you can't even hear them because you're not there, you know, that kind of stuff. And then you will reach for a snack. So it'll be salty, it'll be sweet, it'll be fried or high carbohydrate or something very cheesy. And because there is so much of emotional turmoil going on within, and you're constantly hungry for more, literally in that moment, that you're not only consuming your digital device, but you're consuming the emotions and you're consuming food along with it. There is no pleasure being felt in the body. The body is being used as a dustbin. Okay. In fact, I have a word for people like that. I call them Dustbin Hoffman, after the actor Dustin Hoffman. But then I do that because that's how they treat their bodies. I'm sorry. It's just very funny for me. It's okay if you didn't find it funny. All right. So this is what it is. So, taking care at every step uh, to release the emotional burden that you've put on yourself is a huge way to actually release the patterns that you have formed with eating. So, for example, you could be very angry with a mother for not having loved you the way you would have wanted to be loved and wanted to be nurtured. But what you're doing currently is you have continued the exact same way that she loved you, you're now loving you. So it could involve abuse, self abuse. Okay. And I don't mean hitting yourself, but I mean depriving yourself. It can mean that, or it can mean being extraordinarily strict with yourself, or being hard on yourself, or being very self controlling, or whatever it is, just basically not doing any kind of self care. And if that is the kind of love that you learn from your mother and you do that to yourself now, you are actually then punishing your body and creating a body which you can go show your mother that look what you did to me. So you use your body as a form of punishment for her to make her feel ashamed of what she did to you. But here's the funny thing, you can try different ways to punish her. But guess what? She probably doesn't even notice it. She'll probably come and tell you, but why have you put on so much weight? Why don't you join a gym? Why don't you lose it? Or whatever it is. Or you'll have people telling you that around you. And that's nothing but mirroring your own thoughts. Okay. All of this is super toxic and super dysfunctional. And trust me, no one is getting hurt but you. And this is one of the processes in which you kill yourself super slowly. I have put eating under self care simply because it needs to be in this category. It is one of our most primal needs, and we haven't paid any attention to it. And we are bringing down our entire lives because of it without even realizing it. Okay. So, have you ever had like a fist size portion? Make your fist. Okay. This is the size of your stomach, guys. Okay. So the next time you sit to eat, is this the portion size that you're having at one time, or is it twice the size, or is it thrice the size? This is the size of portion you ought to have, which is mainly your carbohydrates and proteins and fats. Then you can have raw vegetables or salads or whatever that is around it, which is other than this portion size. So next time, what I would suggest is take a fistful of whatever the food is and put it on your plate. Sit in front of it with absolutely no distractions. Okay. Close your eyes if you need to, or you can look at the food and take in the aroma deeply. Allow your mouth to start watering because that's when your body will start to derive the pleasure from the food. I found this on the web. Okay. Sorry, my Siri is working. So dig your fingers into the food and bring the food to your mouth and inhale it when it's around here. Inhale deeply so that you salivate even more. That saliva is very critical to your digestion. And when you take the morsel of food in your mouth, chew slowly, taking in even more flavor because when the food is in your mouth, it's going to break down and it's going to change flavor. There are going to be a lot more flavors, a lot more aromas released. Okay. So allow that to be all over your mouth. It's like bursting a paintball in a room, it's just flying all over the place in your mouth. So allow it to be there. and close your eyes and chew pleasurably in a way that your life dependent on it. Okay. Have you ever cried with joy or cried in pleasure because something tasted just so good, or had perhaps goosebumps all over your body? That is eating with pleasure. And can you imagine doing this 3 to 4 times a day, every time you sit for a meal? You can actually start to derive pleasure. And what will start to happen is that the emotional hunger part of you will start to get the pleasure that it requires, and your physical body gets nourished at the same time. This is eating with mindfulness. So I've done this practice about 3 years ago, and I did it for about 3 months, and it completely changed the way I eat. Okay. And I also started to note what emotions started surfacing. So I kept a little pad and paper, pen next to me, and I started feeling, okay, now I'm feeling a little desperate to eat more. Or I would say something like, okay, I'm getting impatient now. I really want to just finish the whole plate off. And then it was like, okay, so what does it need to finish the whole plate off in one go? Oh, then I realized, oh, because I have a tendency to want to finish things off so I can chill. Okay. So I found that that thing of mine was playing even in my eating. So you'll notice a lot of things about yourself and the way you function through the way you eat. So let's just take care of some things while we go ahead in terms of self care with eating and food. Okay. So there are two types of hunger. One, ask yourself, which one are you feeling? Are you feeling emotional hunger, or you feeling physical hunger? How do you tell the difference in the two? The physical hunger is the one where you actually physically feel it. Your stomach is empty, it's mostly growling. You'll hear all kinds of sounds that are going on in your stomach. You'll hear it rumbling. You may even feel physically weak or low on energy, or you can even be irritable or snappy. That happens to me sometimes when I'm extremely hungry. My brain shuts down. I can't think. And all I want is in that moment is I need food right now. I'm really hungry. That is the point. And try to bring yourself to that point before you actually eat anything. Okay. And then slow down, because it takes about 20 minutes for your stomach to tell your brain I'm full. Right. So eat a fistful, wait. If you feel like taking another portion size because it's very tasty, just wait. Don't wait 20 minutes. Wait for even 7, 8 minutes. No problem. Pause. In all likelihood, that feeling will pass. Okay. And that's how you stick to eating the portion sizes you're supposed to. Two, learn to process your emotions. It's very, very important. Learn to process emotions, learn to process your life experiences and how you perceive the world. Not doing this leads to seeing food as a fix or a drug or a medicine or a compensation. It is seen as everything else other than fuel and nourishment. Number three, welcome all emotions and feelings in your body, then resist them or run or escape from them. You will actually feel 100 times lighter in your body and mind if you choose to do this. Okay. And you will start to choose foods and eating in a very different way. Like I said before, I'll reiterate this: try and make eating fun, pleasurable, and mindful instead of being burdened with the emotional complexities that you've learned in your childhood or your adult life. Okay, stops you from creating a crazy body that you can't probably handle later on. The goal here is to act with conscious as possible and intent, rather than misuse food in an unconscious way, which we're currently doing. If you want to break the disordered eating and the dysfunctional eating, move to pleasurable mindful eating like the French eat, okay, or the Japanese eat, or the Chinese eat, or the Chinese used to eat. Have you seen, if any of you have been to China or Japan, you'll see how they eat. They actually have a little bowl, and they have meat and vegetables or whatever it is, and it's very, very soupy. Okay, there's a lot of water with it, and they eat with chopsticks. And the thing is, the interesting part about eating with chopsticks, if you have eaten with chopsticks, you'll understand that you can't be distracted. You can't be on a phone. You can't be watching TV. You can't be looking anywhere else but in your bowl, because every time you eat that, you have to be extremely conscious of what you're eating. Otherwise, it'll spill all over the place. So that's the interesting part. So try eating with that, because when I wanted to start eating mindfully, I started eating with chopsticks. It forced me to eat in a different way. So that's, kind of using NLP techniques to change the way you eat. It's breaking a habit and starting a new one. So perhaps you can try that. I know it might be difficult to have, rotis and parathas with chopsticks. You can have that with your hand, obviously. There's no hard and fast rule over here. Okay. Your eating and your relationship with food is a direct indication of your relationship to yourself, your relationship to love, how you were raised, and the emotional diet that you grew up on. So, if it is dysfunctional, please get it fixed right away. Sit down to eat pleasurably and slowly. The best diet is the slow diet. It's the best diet in the world. The slow diet, meaning eating mindfully. Okay. You can actually eat everything in the world then if you learn to eat mindfully and pleasurably. Being aware of what you're eating, how you're eating, when you're eating, how much portion you're eating, all of it. And you can totally be a foodie, just like me. I'm a total foodie, and I don't have a problem with food. I pretty much can digest anything. So, process emotions and eat food, not the other way around. Okay. Refuse to use your body as a stuffing mechanism for failed attempts to meet yourself. Stop the self abuse. Your body deserves so much more than you're actually giving it right now. It is designed to constantly move all the time. Look at kids, they're either moving or they're sleeping. There's nothing in between. Unless, of course, in the lockdown now, they've gotten addicted to devices. Okay, kids process emotions simply by expressing them, unless they have been taught to do so otherwise. And look at their bodies. They grow beautifully, they grow on their own, and they move when they need to move, and they rest when they're absolutely tired. You know, what we tell kids is like, oh, look at that, the battery is down, which is true, because during the daytime and evenings, they're like energizer bunnies. And look at what happens to us when we become adults. Okay. So, what would it take for all of us to create that even now with our bodies? And with that, we come to the end of this particular topic. Next week, we're going to go more into what foods work for you, how to change the way you eat, stocking up your kitchen, your groceries, what movement and motivation is required to get your bodies moving. And with self care in mind, how do you take care of your overall health? With our special guest, Vikas Khandelwal, who is a health and fitness coach. And I will personally vouch for his work. It's brilliant. I have seen the results of it myself. So now I have a few questions that I'm willing to take. I have a couple of them that have come in. Okay, so Pramila from Chennai is asking, is eating an addiction? Under natural circumstances, it's not, but with our lifestyle, mostly a yes. And I have explained to you how. Sumita has asked, how do I break this habit of snacking without need? So the thing is, Sumita, snacking can come from either real hunger or false hunger, like I mentioned to you. If you have now the information to understand the difference between the two, ask yourself, which one are you doing at what point of time? Uh, First, I would suggest have a lot of water, wait for some more time, and then see which one of the two hungers you're feeling. If you need to snack in between, and it's perfectly fine to snack, and you should snack, there's nothing wrong with it. But snacking doesn't mean you reach for foods that you know you're going to regret having later. Try to reach for foods that are very nourishing to your body. Um, have patience in changing this. It's taken time for you to become the way you are. It is going to take a little bit of time to you for you to undo this habit. Okay. And yeah, my last piece of advice would be just wait. If there is an impulse to snack and eat all the time, just wait, just wait, just wait, just keep waiting. Patience, don't act on it, don't react to it. We are compelled to react to every thought that we have in our head. We don't have to, they're just thoughts. Okay. Wait for it to pass, and it will pass. And you keep doing that, and you're teaching yourself to have patience then. You're teaching yourself to then respond instead of reacting. And that should help you. Right? Okay, great. Okay, so I have some questions, I think. When you say childhood, exactly what age are you referring here? Childhood is throughout childhood, from the day that you're born and you start having breast milk till the time that you're a teenager. You know, at every stage of childhood, you will have a different experience with food. So you have to understand what was your first relationship with food, as in, you know, did you feed on your mom? How long did you feed? How was the experience for you? You know, right from there on till now. Shilpa has asked, what's the importance of water and how much water should we have? You need to have, under normal circumstances, I would say 2 to 3 liters a day is considered normal. That's 8 to 10 glasses. But um, when you feel tired, when you feel moody, it's almost always that you're actually very thirsty. So the trick here is to remember to not get to a point where you're thirsty. If you're thirsty, it means the body is quite dehydrated. Okay, you need to have a lot of water. There are, one of the ways to tell is that just check the color of your urine. If your urine tends to be yellow to orangish, it means that your body doesn't have much water and it's not detoxifying and filtering out the crap like it needs to. Water is required for detoxification and the filtration process in the body. So please give the body what it needs. Have lots of water in the day. You're saying they should also say we should not mix up food like fruits and veggies together. That's not really true, but one of the thumb rules is to not have fruits after a meal. Try to have fruits about half an hour before a meal or use fruit for snacking. That's the best thing you can do. All right. Any other questions, guys? I'm taking a look at the other stuff. No, nothing else. Yes, one more question, Shilpa. Do you want to come on video and ask? This is just going to take a much longer time. What about salt and sugar? What about it?
So, Aditi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Aditi, they say like there are a lot of books that are written which say that you should stay away from sugar and salt completely. Can you throw some light on that?
Uh, okay, that's a trick question. um, okay, how do I answer this? Do you need salt? Not always. Okay. Um, because all foods actually naturally have ingredients in it, or other, I would say, minerals in it that your body requires. A lot of people will try to sell you, especially advertisers will try to sell you, that it's the iodine and the salt that is critical for your body. Now here's the thing: for the past 10 years I have been having unbleached salt. That's the pink Himalayan salt, or the black salt, which is very, very naturally occurring in India. We're very, very lucky to have a good quality salt like that. It's also known as Senda Namak, and you can get it at any grocer, however big or small. And you get them in the form of these rocks. So they'll powder it and give it to you. You can get the rocks home, powder it, and keep it in there. That is naturally occurring salt, and that's really good for your body. I never buy commercial salt, like whatever these big brands are that sell. And anybody who advertises, I don't buy from them, simply because there are a lot of things that are fortified in those packaged foods and salt and sugar and all of it, which I don't want to put in my body. So that's the answer to salt. And you don't need too much salt. Honestly, don't put salt in your food when you're cooking. uh, Take the food in your plate, have a morsel, have a spoonful, see how it feels. If it feels really off, and if you really genuinely feel it needs a little bit of salt, put a tiny pinch of the pink salt or the black salt, and that's enough for you, really. As far as sugar is concerned, I encourage people to avoid the white bleached sugar that you get in the market again. Try to get raw sugar as far as possible, not jaggery. Not jaggery. Jaggery and powdered jaggery are different. Raw sugar is sugar that is unbleached. Okay, there are certain, and of course, organic. So try to get organic sugar if you can, because there are no chemicals in it, and it's the chemicals in the sugar that actually make it much worse and damaging to your body. Um, Sugar again is not needed, simply because if you're eating, say, 3 biscuits in a day, you are getting your quota of sugar. If you're a person who has ketchup, you're getting more than enough sugar and salt. What we don't realize is that all packaged foods have either salt or sugar in them. Salt is used as a preservative, sugar is used to enhance the taste. Um, if you're eating anything out of a packet, you are already getting salt and sugar, more than enough that you need in 24 hours. So you don't need to put anything additionally. And that is what I tell people, because that is true. It's simple. There is a lot of science gone behind it, a lot of study gone behind it. And every few years, you'll have conflicting reports of whether sugar and salt is good for you or not. But the idea here is to understand what are your sources of salt, what are your sources of sugar in the day, and do you need more than that? Is that
Thank you,
helpful?
Aditi. But yeah, of course, it was very helpful. And I have one more question. You just
Sure.
also mentioned about jaggery. So I
Yeah.
like having my chai, but I've shifted from, normal brown sugar or raw sugar to a little bit of jaggery. Do you think
Okay.
jaggery is fine?
Look, jaggery is healthy. It's simple. Although jaggery is also sugar and it also has exactly the same calories as any other sugar, but it also has a lot more nutrient value in it. So jaggery is high in iron. Okay. If you take jaggery
Okay.
instead of sugar, what you're doing is that you're having the same calories as sugar, but you're also consuming iron along with it.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is the
Yeah.
reason why people switch to jaggery. But then
Yeah.
again, try and have organic sources of jaggery.
Yeah. That I
Because
take.
jaggery can be extremely the processing of jaggery can be terrible, as in exposed to a lot of chemicals. So you don't want that stuff in your body.
आपका आइडिया बहुत भारी लगा। मेरे पास
Yes,
वो
Madhu.
कैरम का होता है ना ऐसा वाला, उसमें टांग के
Sorry,
कैरम खेलने के लिए यूज करते हैं ना, वो भी छत भी है, तो उसमें से करेंगे तो बहुत इजी रहेगा ना। वो तो लाइट आप जहाँ चाहिए वही।
I think Madhu was talking to somebody else. Rani is saying it's been circulating that water should be taken as 1 liter per 20 kgs of a person. Is that true? I wouldn't buy that stuff. Please, how much are you seriously going to measure every day? I mean, if you like weigh 80 kilos, are you going to measure your water and have it? Have an average of 2 to 3 liters, meaning about 8 to 10 glasses a day, and that's enough. You don't need to go with exactly the amounts, because your body is superb. I mean, it's one of the most amazing mechanisms in the world. It's even doctors and scientists still now don't understand the mysterious and amazing ways in which the body actually works, and you're trying to bring it down to numbers, and I'm telling you, you can't do that. Really simply, go with what your body tells you. Listen to your body's signals. If it's telling you it's thirsty, it means it's dehydrated. So have water. If you're feeling hungry, you're in all likelihood thirsty. So first have water, wait for a few more minutes, and then still see if you're hungry. And then please, by all means, eat. Nobody's asking you not to eat. So yeah, that's the answer to my question, Rani. I hope that helps. Okay, cool. Most welcome. Anything else, guys? Any other questions? Nipam Jain, you had asked for something. I've sent it to you on the message. Um, And if there are no more questions, then I will be wrapping up today's session. And I will look forward to next week's session, which is workout from home. How do you stock your kitchen right? How do you get the right foods home? And how do you have fun with your bodies in a way that you move it? That's really, really awesome for you. And I hope you guys enjoyed today's session. Have a wonderfully happy Dashera tomorrow and a lovely weekend. And I will see you guys next week.